Today, I'm going to show you exactly how I formatted and published this book, and it's the exact same process that I have for formatting and publishing most of my books, if not all of them. So let's dive in and see the process. All right, so this is Attekus. This is the tool I use to format most books. There are other tools like it. There's Vellum if you are a Mac user, but it's only available for Mac. It will probably never be available on other platforms. And Attekus is cheaper and does everything that Vellum does, so I'm a big fan of Attekus. Attekus has had a few glitches in the last couple of months as they've rolled out a couple of updates that have made it a little slower, but at least half of those glitches I've noticed have really cleared up recently. I know the team behind Atticus. I know that it's something that they're working on constantly. And there really just isn't another option as far as I'm concerned. And I'm saying that like they're not paying me to say this. The link that you'll find to it down below is not an affiliate link, but it just makes everything so much easier. And I see people that still use Microsoft Word to format their books. And it's just you're setting yourself up for so much pain by comparison, whereas Attekus will do like most of what you needed to. So Attekus is the tool that I use, and let's just walk through a little bit of what this looks like. First of all, you take the manuscript. If you didn't put it in here already, some people will actually write their books in Attekus. Because I use AI, I don't necessarily do that. I use other tools to help. As soon as I'm done with a chapter, I will come and put it here in Attekus, just like you see here. And you'll notice occasionally you'll get little things like this with these 3 stars. So this is a scene break. And you can add these, you go anywhere in the text, and then there is a button up here that says scene break. You press that and it'll automatically add that scene break. I don't want this one, so I'll delete it, but that's how you add it. And you have a lot of other options out here to add in different things and to format your text. You can add images, you can add a call out box. If you're doing nonfiction, that one's really useful. You can add text messages. So if you're writing some kind of contemporary book where you want to show the people text messaging each other and what that looks like, you can add that in here. You can add footnotes and a lot of other things in here, quotes, prose, all sorts of stuff. Additionally, over here on the side, you can choose what your font looks like while you're editing. So not the font that it's going to look like in the final product, but just the font that you want here in this window. And there's actually some evidence to suggest that using Comic Relief, I know a lot of people hate it, or Comic Sans essentially, is actually a good way to edit because you tend to pick up on things a little bit better. That's what I've heard. Don't actually know if that's true, but don't worry, the Comic Sans won't translate over into the final finished file. So anyway, you go through this, you make your edits and make sure everything is properly arranged. Here you can see here I'm using a quote to show this person, this is a letter that someone reads in the text. So I'm using a quote to format that. Then up at the top, we get the title page. This isn't what it looks like, but this is just showing you what all of the details are. And if you want to change these, you can go up here to edit book details, where you put in the book title, a subtitle, the author, the project, which I usually use series names for projects, and this one's called the Necronomicon Files. And there's other stuff you can do here, but this one is interesting. This is the start page. So you know, whenever you take an ebook and you open it up on your Kindle or what have you, it won't always start right at the very, very beginning of the file. It'll sometimes start right where the text, like the actual chapter 1 starts. And so you can actually distinguish what that is and put that in here if you want. So that's really useful. This is also where you come to download EPUBs, PDFs, or docs of your book. There's another place where you can download the EPUB and the PDF, but the docs is only available here. You might need that if you want to take your book and show it to an editor or something like that. So let's go back. I have a copyright page here. This is just a very simple copy and paste sort of copyright. Just said copyright 2025 by Jason Hamilton, etc. And then at the bottom here, I have this ad for my membership for fiction writers, or for fiction readers, that I call the Knights of the Round Table membership. So I have just a little bit of a note about it here to any readers who come across this. And then I have an about the author page. Now, the nice thing about Attekus, one of the things it will do, is that you can actually save this as a sort of template. And then I can come into a different book and just say, use this about the author page, and it'll pull in the same thing. And the nice thing about that is that if I make any changes to this page, I can say apply changes down here, and then I can apply it just for this one, or I can apply it for any of the other books that have the same template, which is a fantastically useful tool, because sometimes you're using the same thing on 20 different books and you don't want to have to go and copy paste into every single one of them, right? So that's a nice feature there. So this is everything I've shown you is just part of the writing tab. The next tab goes into formatting, and it's got a bunch of templates, but you can also create your own or modify an existing one. And that's what I ended up doing. I took one and I modified it. So now I've got this one that I'm just calling Pulp/Lovecraft that I can use for any of those types of books. And I spent some time actually going through and finding a font that I liked. I ended up zeroing on this one, Voltaire, because I thought it had almost an Art Deco kind of look, which I like for this particular style. I also made sure that I changed the number view here. So if we go to, let's say, like here's chapter 9, it just says 9. Right? But I could also select this, and now it would say chapter 9, or chapter 9 with a number, or just the 9, right? But I wanted the spelled out 9 and with nothing else, but that looked good. You can also modify the size, everything, so it looks however you want it. Another good thing to check out is make sure you check what it looks like in print, because it'll look like this, and then I can click on this preview here and it'll pull up what this chapter looks like in print. Notice that it's sort of like here, it's got a larger margin over here and a shorter one over here, but here that's flipped. The shorter margin's over here and the larger one's here. This is called a gutter margin, and it's one of those things that's very difficult to figure out in Word, but you gotta have it. And Attekus just does it for you automatically without any problems, because the margin on the inside closest to the spine of the book needs to be larger. Otherwise, some of the text can sort of disappear. That's always flipping from one page to another. You want to make sure that gutter margin is in there. Also, you can see here, if I zoom in, that I've selected a style here for the ornamental break. So you notice those 3 stars that we were setting up earlier, those will look like this. But you can specify what you want that to look like here in the formatting settings. So you come here to this tab, Scene Break, and you can see this is the one I've selected, and you can choose the width of it, how wide do you want it to look. And if you wanted to look at other things, you could also go here to My Image Gallery, go to Attekus Images, and then here are the ones that Attekus has in it by default. You can also create your own and bring them in as well. But I chose this sort of simple minimalist one. I thought it looked good. There's lots of other things that you could do in here as far as formatting your book goes, but honestly, most of them were already set like I wanted. I just wanted to figure out this heading up here and just some of the basics to make sure that it was all exactly like I wanted. Again, you could probably use any of the templates and those would be sufficient. Maybe you would want to tweak it just a little bit, but I'm usually able to get something that I like very quickly. And now that I've created this, I can use the exact same template for every other book in the series, and it'll be formatted the exact same way. So I don't even really need to make any changes now from now on. I just do a few clicks and I'm using that template for all future books. So that's a really useful tool. And that's really all I have to do. Look through it, preview it, make sure it looks all right, and then I can just go here to export EPUB and export PDF. Now, export PDF I only use if I'm creating a print version of this book. And this book in particular is a small novella, and I don't plan on creating print versions of the novellas until I get to a point where I bundle them. So once I've got several of these out, I will create a bundle of probably 3 or 4 of them, and I will create a print version for those. So for that reason, I did not export a PDF here, but I did just go here and say export PDF. It automatically downloads, and now I have my EPUB file. So now the next step is to go in and actually publish the book. If you saw in the last video I did, I already created the book cover using AI and Photoshop and putting a lot of different elements together. Go check that video out if you haven't seen it already, but you will also need a cover for this next step that we're going to get into. So your next step is to go to kdp.amazon.com and you'll be greeted with something that looks something like this. And if to create a new one, you go here to create. I always start with the Kindle ebook. You can start with the paperback or the hardcover, but I would just start with the ebook. You're going to get a lot of the stuff out of the way that you need to here. So just go to create ebook and you'll be presented with all of these blank fields that you now need to fill out. So let's go through what I actually put for this book that I've been demonstrating and show you exactly that process. So once again, I did not create a paperback or hardcover for this book because it's a small book. But if we go here to the ebook details, we'll be able to see all of these same fields, but now we've got, they're all filled out. So I filled in the title, The Tomb of the Hides, the subtitle, which is a Lovecraft retelling. That's a keyword I did some research on. And so we'll get into that a little bit later. And then I put the series as well. One of the nice things about KDP these days, which didn't used to be the case, is the fact that you can create these series pages and add different books to the series page and it all fits. It used to be that you had to ask someone like an actual human at Amazon to create a series page for you and to add your book to that series. But now you can just do it right here. You can put the edition number if you have that, but I didn't need that. I would put the author name, any other contributors, if there's like a co-author or someone else you want to give credit to, you can put that here. And then the book description. Now I did use AI to create the first draft of this book description. My process is to go and do my research again, look at other high-performing books in the similar genre, and then take those book descriptions, take them to AI and say, create a sentence-by-sentence analysis of this from a copywriting perspective, and then use that to create a template. And once you have the template, give it information about your book and ask it to use that template to write a book description. The reason I do it that way, rather than just saying write me a book description, is because the book descriptions will change depending on what genre you're in. Some will behave a little differently. Some might be in first person, some might be in third person, whatever the case may be. And so I always go and I ask for a template based on other high performing book descriptions. And then once I had that, I did a lot of editing to make sure it was clean and put it in here. Now you can't really tell, but this first line is also a heading 4. So you notice like this text, it says normal here, but if I select this, it says heading 4. That just means it's going to be a little bit larger and bolder than the rest of it. You can't tell here. I don't know why they don't show it properly, but when you look at the actual page, it's larger. And then you put the rest here, and then I like to usually bold or italicize the last sentence. Blending Gothic horror with psychological suspense, this reimagining of H.P. Lovecraft's The Tomb breathes new life and death into classic literature. So I thought that was great. That didn't take me too long because I used the AI methods I mentioned. Publishing rights, you say I own the copyright and hold the necessary publishing rights. That's true. It is based on a public domain work, but because this is a complete reimagining, complete rewriting, then I own the copyright to it. There's no sexually explicit images or words in the title, so I say no. Reading age, I usually leave this blank unless I'm specifically targeting a younger reader, like a children's book or something like that. For most books, I just leave this blank. Primary marketplace would be Amazon.com for me. And then we put in the categories. Now, let's talk a little bit about categories and keywords, because you'll notice I have a bunch of keywords here. These keywords I found, well, some of them I just put them in there because I thought they were appropriate, like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. The Dr. Jekyll actually makes an appearance in this novella, and so I put that in as one of my keywords because it's not obvious from the title. Well, I guess it does have the Hyde name in the title, but there's not like a connection to Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And then I also wanted some around the topic of Gothic fantasy books and Gothic horror books, but then also Lovecraft fantasy, Lovecraftian horror. The subtitle selected Lovecraftian retelling is also a keyword. And the tool that I use to find both the categories and the keywords is a tool called Publisher Rocket. This is the same team, same group of people that brought you Attekus. And my link for Publisher Rocket down below is an affiliate link, unlike Attekus's. So feel free to use that link if you want to buy this tool and support the channel while you're at it. I just spent a lot of time just sort of wandering around. There's a lot of just, trying different things, spending time just examining the market inside of Attekus to find all of these things. But if we take a look at this keyword search function and I type in something like Lovecraft retelling, it gives me an analysis of that thing. So it gave me a competitive score of 28, which is a nice low score. You can see it's in green. Now you can see this one is in red, but actually for me, I find that if there is more than 100, I'm happy with that, especially for a more niche subject like this one. Generally speaking, you want the lowest competitive score possible with the highest estimated Amazon searches per month. So this means that you're getting an average of 280 people searching for Lovecraft retelling every month. And because it's so low on the competitive score, I can reasonably assume that I can get my book to rank pretty high, especially because I put this keyword in the subtitle, which has a little more weight to it, I believe. But if we look at others that I tried out, so I think we had Gothic fantasy books. Let's see what that one does. So we put that one in here, gives us Gothic fantasy books. And yeah, this one's really good, actually. We've got a competitive score of 2 and an estimated Amazon searches per month of 382. So that's another really good one there. And so that's why I included it as part of my 7 keywords. Publisher Rocket also allows you to look up categories and see how good they're doing. Now, when it comes to categories, mostly I will just pick the categories that are relevant to my fiction. Some people will go category hunting first to figure out what's trending, what's hot, and then they will write the book to fit into that category. That's not really how I operate, but a lot of people do. And so for me, my process is I went and looked at other similar books and looked at what they were ranked in, like what categories were they using, because I wanted to just make sure the categories were as relevant to my book as possible. But you can do some additional research to see if the category is trending or not. So if we look at the categories I got here in Kindle, we've got mystery, thriller, suspense, paranormal. So if we look at that up, I'll just type in paranormal here into Publisher Rocket and let's find it. Let's see, that would be under Kindle books. Got mystery. Okay, here it is. So this is the Kindle books, mystery, thriller, suspense, paranormal. Attekus will give you some insights. So we click on the insights and we can see it's the most, like, even though this trend line is going down, just looking at it from my human perspective, I can tell that it's actually probably pretty steady here. We just had a couple of months where there's some spikes for whatever reason. And even this category overview says that it has relatively flat growth, but it does also say to expect high competition, but high profit in the top ranking books, and it has high variation. Only a few bestsellers might be driving its growth status. So normally I would look at this and be like, that's kind of a little bit competitive. Like the sales to get to number 10, I have to get 96 sales a day to even get to number 10 in this category, which is a little bit competitive, but that's all right with me because it's one of the most relevant ones. Now let's look at a different one. Let's say occult, which is another one that I selected. So it was this one, Kindle books, literature, fiction, horror, occult. We select the insights to this one. Again, it looks kind of flat with some big variability here. This one's slightly less competitive at 86 to get to number 10, but 628 to get to number 1. So it's another one that's kind of difficult. So you can spend time going through here and see if you can find other categories that are relevant to your book. Me, I just tried to pick the relevant categories, the ones that were most relevant. Amazon will put you in other categories themselves if they feel that you're relevant to them. So it's important to make sure your book is properly targeted. Otherwise, it's not going to do that well. And it can actually take you out of categories if it thinks you're not relevant for those categories. So I always for me personally, I'll spend a little more time trying to find competitive keywords, but the categories, I just try to find the most relevant ones. So once you have all of this information in here, you go to save and continue. And this is where you upload your manuscript and your book cover. Now the manuscript we just formatted, so I would just say upload manuscript and put the file in here. Same with the book cover. If you saw my video about developing this book cover, you'll understand how I created it using Photoshop and various AI tools. But I thought it was a really great cover, and so I took that, and the size that you want is 1600 by 2560. Why do I know that off the top of my head? Just because I've been doing this a long time. And so I always get it to that size. Now, it doesn't have to be that size. You can upload different sizes, but that's the recommended size that Amazon has. Then we get to the AI generated content section. And yes, you should make sure you're honest in this section. This is not to witch hunt any authors who are using AI. This is just purely so Amazon can have accurate information so that they can learn a little bit about the tools that you're using and potentially to hedge themselves against future regulation that may or may not require them to disclose if AI content was used. But that's not the case right now. Nobody is disclosing. Amazon's not disclosing that you used AI. In this case, I said yes. For text, I said none. This book actually does not have AI generated text in it because it was partially ghostwritten and then edited by me. And so I put none for that. But for images, as you saw saw in my last video, I did use AI in that images. So I say one or a few AI images with extensive editing. And I put the different tools I used, including Midjourney, Ideogram, and Magnific. And then, of course, this is not a translation, so I'm going to put none here for translations. If you didn't have any AI use whatsoever, you would just put no. If you had AI text, I would come here and you could select some sections with minimal or no editing, some sections with extensive editing, the entire work with minimal or no editing, or the entire work with extensive editing. And just to clarify, this is for actual generated text. If you are using AI to edit or proofread your text, or if you're using it to brainstorm, outline, that stuff, that's considered AI assisted and does not need to be disclosed here on Amazon. It's only if you used AI to generate portions of the text itself. Now you'll get to this thing, which gives you it'll actually tell you if they think it spotted spelling errors, which sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. And you can preview what the ebook will look like. So we just hit launch previewer, and it'll pull up the previewer. This is more important for the paperback version because you want to check that your margins and everything are correct. Okay, and for whatever reason, it's not loading for me right now, so I'm just going to skip that for you. It can be good to look through the spelling errors that it gives you. Usually it's because I had like a link or something that was all spelled out and it caught that, but sometimes it'll catch actual spelling errors that you'll want to go ahead and fix and then re-download the EPUB file and re-upload it here. You can also add an ISBN number here if you want. I, perhaps somewhat controversially, do not recommend ISBN numbers because the only thing that it gives you is the right to put your publisher name as the publisher of the book, because Amazon will just give you one for free, and there's absolutely no problem with that. So do all of the other places that you could publish your book. So I just get all of the free ISBNs because here in the United States, it's insanely expensive to buy ISBNs, and there really isn't a good advantage to having them. So I just don't use them. I do put my publisher name here, and then you hit save and continue. And the last section here, there's the three sections. There's the details, there's the content, and now we get to the pricing. If you want to put your book in KDP Select, you can do that here. That requires that the ebook be exclusive to Amazon and that you don't publish it anywhere else for at least a period of 90 days, after which you can opt out again if you want. Sometimes worth doing. A lot of people do make quite a bit of money in KDP Select, but you are obviously much more beholden to Amazon if that happens. And like if Amazon just decided to shut down your account, you would have nowhere else to buy books. I don't use it, but that's because I have like direct selling approaches and stuff like that to make up for the potential revenue loss. Territories, I just always say all territories unless there's someplace you want to exclude. And then we get to the pricing and royalties. Now I've priced this one at 99 cents because it's a short book and it's the first in the series. I usually put the first in the series as slightly less than the rest in the series. The rest of the books in this series will probably be $2.99 or $4.99, somewhere in there. So I'm putting the first book just 99 cents so people can easily pick it up. But I wouldn't normally price that low, except that this is the first in a series of novellas that'll be a lengthy series. So I'm okay with this first one being really cheap. Because it's at 99 cents, I have to select the 35% royalty, which means I only get 35 cents anytime someone buys this. But if I were priced higher, most people price between $2.99 and $9.99 because that's where you get the 70% royalties. If you're above or below that, you have to do the 35% royalties. So that's why it's definitely a loss leader to put this at 99 cents. Only reason I do that is because I expect the rest of the series to eventually be able to make up for the losses I'm making on this book. You put all the other information into here, and then you just say publish a Kindle ebook, and it'll be done. And then you usually give Amazon about 24 hours to review it. And if there are any problems, they will let you know. Otherwise, you will have just published your book. It's really that simple. It's not a whole lot of work, especially if you checked out my last video, which went over book covers. That's like one of the most important parts of this whole post-book process where you're actually getting things ready to publish. But I was able to do this entire thing, including creating the book cover in a single day. So it really doesn't take that long to go. It's very easy to do. And I hope this was a useful video for you. And if so, please check out my membership. I've got some free stuff down below. If you want to check that out, there's a free community. I would check that out first. If you like what you see there, you can maybe take a look at upgrading to the paid community where we have tons of additional resources. And I will see you in the next video.